tonight is on belief, faith, and prayer. There are elements, all three of these are elements of one thing in our philosophy: consciousness. 2 weeks ago, I spoke to you on Zoom, and I spoke about desire, opinion, and revelation. And I said that these two talks would kind of go together. They'll blend together. So we'll play with that tonight while we speak. So that's because all of these elements, desire, opinion, revelation, and belief, faith, and prayer, all merge together with how we live our lives and how we think that life is for us. Or if I can restate that differently, these are the elements we use to create the platform of our lives. Our desires, our opinions, our beliefs, and our faith create our personal rules and the laws that we hold for ourselves consciously and unconsciously about everything. And then that creates the opening for revelations and inspiration that come into our awareness, because we only are going to hear what we really believe and what comes into our awareness. Lots of things kind of move around us and come at us, but we only really take in and hear what we want to hear. All of this constitutes actually how we pray to our individual divine power, whatever that is for you. We get messages and nudges and inspiration all the time because we're never really lost that connection to spirit, to God. But if we believe that stuff like this doesn't happen for us, that it only happens for special people, then we kind of create a block for some of that information to come in. So I listened to, it's a 4-hour drive up here from Texas. So I listen to lots of things as I'm driving along. I listened to the most wonderful talk today, or actually it's a minister who was receiving letters from God. She had kind of a near-death experience, and now she gets these letters in the middle of the night and has to get up and transcribe them. And he tries to convince her so lovingly in the first couple letters about how he's always present, waiting for each one of us to open. So it's funny that I wrote about this for my talk tonight, and then I hear it again as I listen today. It was so fascinating. So if we don't think that we can do that, that we can hear that we're not supposed to, we block it ourselves. So we just surrender to opening to hearing that all the time, because God is there waiting for us. We have to believe on some level that God is there and that our higher power speaks to every person, including us. Ernest Holmes says in Living the Science of Mind, Jesus clearly taught that spiritual power works through man at the level of his belief, implying that it would work as he believed and while he believed. Now, I might think that you guys might know by now that I'm not much of a Bible minister. I think there's a lot of other information that comes directly down, but however, I think the Bible is a wonderful library of information for guidance, for stories as a reference, and that it can actually be used as an organic tool that touches people on a very individual level for how they want to grow spiritually. And I like to describe the human that Jesus was, that he didn't come here to be our savior. He came here to remind us how we can save ourselves, or that actually that we never needed to be saved at all. He came here to show us how powerful we are. And why am I telling you this particularly? Because there are so many quotes in the Bible that actually directly work with our style of affirmative prayer, and that how we believe that our thoughts make a difference. Here's a few. Matthew 7:2. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Matthew 8:13. Go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. And his servant was healed in the same hour. Matthew 9:22. Take heart, daughter, he said, your faith has healed you. Matthew 9:28 through 30. He said to the men, do you believe that I am able to do this? Yes, Lord, they replied. Then he touched their eyes and said, according to your faith, it will be done unto you. Matthew 15. Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. Matthew 21. I tell you the truth, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, but also you can say to the mountain, go, throw yourself into the sea, and it will be done. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Knock, and the door will be open. I believe that our form of prayer, spiritual mind treatment, and the way that it's taught gives power to our belief and teaches us to go deeper the longer we work with it. Okay. Belief is a state of mind in which a person who thinks something to be the case, with or without there being empirical evidence to prove the certainty. We will believe something whether we have proof or not. I think politics right now is a great example of that. Most of our beliefs are created when we were very young, so we may not actually be aware of exactly how they were created, or actually how to word some of the beliefs that we have, or why did we even come up with some of the beliefs that we have. Not all beliefs, but I think a lot of them, because our little child minds take in things that we don't remember. So here's an example. I had a friend many years ago, and we were taking a walk through the woods, and she had weight issues most of her life. It wasn't an issue when she was young, but it presented itself to her in her 30s. She tried all the things that people do, and nothing helped the way she'd hoped. So she went to see a hypnotist. She tried hypnotism. During the hypnotism sessions, she learned that she had an event as a very young child. There was an adult in the home that made a statement that she overheard that said, "When I get my dream job, I'll be fat and happy." Now this, in her young mind, not cognitive enough to make the difference and really take that in as an adult, created a belief that was then hidden within her subconscious. So it was dream job, fat, happy. It all goes together. So what happened? As an adult, she was very successful in business, and she gained weight. And she was now able to see a pattern that when she was between jobs, she made enough money to quit working at different times. But when she was between jobs, she would lose weight. When she went back to work, she would increase her weight again. So now, through the hypnotism, being aware of the belief that she had made up as a child, and it was buried, this now allowed her to change that belief because it certainly didn't work for her any longer. She was now consciously aware of the core belief that formed hidden within her subconscious. And now, with desire, maturity, and wisdom, she was able to change that belief. So like this example, some beliefs may come from events in our lives, some not. We make them up kind of as we go along, actually. And depending on how long ago some of these events happened, do they still have meaning for you? And if you're unsure of the beliefs that you carry subconsciously, look at the patterns in your life. That's how you can tell. And are the patterns good and positive? Or do you want to change some of those patterns in your life? Beliefs are a way of thinking. It's an activity of consciousness. It is a thing of thought. And of course, Ernest Holmes teaches us that thoughts are things, and things can be changed. We can change a belief if we find that it's not working for us any longer in our life. We teach that there's a creative process, an ongoing activity of God that is unending. This is our teaching symbol that is a demonstration of the creative process that is always ongoing. You know what all the symbolism means in here? Good. So does everybody know what that is? We'll talk about it afterwards if you don't. But
no, V for victory.
Yeah, V for victory. Yes, God is big. No, well, this is the activity of God coming down. And it goes back up on this side because God is always in the creative process. So it goes back up and then kind of curves, and there's always a wave of activity in God. But we'll talk a little bit more about that afterward. But the creative process is always active and always ongoing. We can say that we are immersed in an infinite creative medium. That is this whole process. The medium is that which kind of takes our thought and our life and kind of puts it into form. And the creative medium is the activity that acts upon every thought and feeling without judgment. Its only action is to create, not to think or judge about what it's doing. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "It is done unto you as you believe." So are our thoughts creating the platform of our daily life that we're happy with? Now, what if your friend says, "I don't believe in God. I don't know what to believe. I don't believe in any of this stuff"? Well, we all believe in something. Not even knowing what we believe sometimes is a belief in itself when it's repeated enough. And we may not give a conscious thought about the way some things happen in our life and whether or not, it's part of our belief. Dr. Andrew Newberg, who writes for the Science of Mind magazine, is a neuroscientist who studies the relationship between brain function and various mental states. He's a pioneer in something that's called neurotheology. He likes to take pictures of people's brains while they're in spiritual process, whether they're in prayer, in meditation, doing in trance states and rituals. And then he understands how the brain kind of functions around all of this. He's written a lot of good books, and we studied some books in our schooling. And there's one called How God Changes Your Brain. It's really kind of fun. It definitely kind of takes things apart, but he talks about how the parts in your brain will light up when you're in a belief process. And he found that no matter what religion you are, even if you're an atheist or somewhere in between, that there's a particular part of your brain that lights up when you're engaged in a strong belief about something, whether it's a ritual or even an opinion. Because you see, whether you believe faith is about something you name God, or if your belief is even about nothing, it's still a belief, right? It's how you think about things. And so the brain works in the same way, whether you're a Buddhist priest or you're an atheist biker dude. It's about the strength and the depth of your belief that makes the difference. So if we're surrounded by this creative medium, which presses itself against us and acts upon our thoughts without judgment, it makes sense to have beliefs that support our well-being and our happiness and our good, right? Yeah. So here's a similar statement that was written by one of our really great practitioners. Her name was Helen Van Slyke, and this was back in the 30s, actually. She was an interesting practitioner. She did amazing cures for people and changing their life. And she says, man is life functioning at the level of self-consciousness. This constitutes him the master of the creative power because it is subjective, and subjectivity is a lower order of intelligence than self-consciousness. Whatever we identify ourselves with in thought, the creative power translates into a material condition. Therefore, whatsoever things are of good report, think on these things. Everyone wishes the good things of life because everyone is an individualization of the good life. However, the wish must be converted into a mental acceptance before the subjective power can produce the desired condition. So they use a little bit of different language back then, but she's saying the same thing. We have to understand that what we think and what the power we put into it makes a difference, and it has to be things that we really want good in our life. It's said that every statement we make can be defined as a belief or an affirmation of something we believe. Whoa, think about that. Everything you've said today is an affirmation or a belief. Where were your thoughts today? That could be a little scary, I think, sometimes. Faith is confidence or trust in a particular system of belief. Faith may equate to confidence based on some perceived degree of warrant, based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. Faith can be very strong. Faith can move mountains, just as Jesus said. I tell you the truth, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what the fig tree did, but you can say to the mountain, go throw yourself into the sea and it will be done. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask prayer for. And somewhere in the works of Ernest Holmes, he says, keep the single eye straight. I've used that a lot in some of my own prayers and affirmations because it keeps me really focused and keeps doubt totally, there's no doubt when I keep that phrase, keep the single eye straight, and you know your desire and you don't veer off the path of what you want. No doubt, no what ifs. There's a law of good, which is an invisible law, which acts upon your faith, reflecting like a mirror your ongoing mental attitudes. Dr. Holmes also tells us that the law of faith operates on your belief and your decision, and it is faith that holds things where you place them. Faith is the power that backs our beliefs of things working for our good. Faith is the affirmative mode of thought, and it's the glue that holds it together. Belief and faith fall into the rule of cause and effect. What we believe and put our power into, our feelings and our imagery, would be the cause in action that creates the outcome, the end result, which is the effect. Cause and effect. You guys all know that. And if you don't like the outcome of something, what was the thought? What was the intention, the desire, and the imagery? What was the feeling of it? Because all of that plays part. Was it in alignment with the outcome that you wanted? Or did you veer off the path a little bit in doubt? Or maybe a story that you didn't want? All of that is part of the cause and effect. And then this brings us to prayer, where we can put it all together. Prayer is mind in action. When you pray, start with the end result in mind. Always believe that you already have what you desire, what you choose to experience. As you believe and have faith, you make a mold in which the God thing can pour itself, or the creative medium can pour itself into and manifest what you desire in form. Thoughts are things, and thought is the form. And in that way, you're creating a prototype of that desire. This is affirmative prayer, of course, what we call spiritual mind treatment. In Living the Science of Mind also, it says prayer is the truest sense. In the truest sense, it's not a petition, not a supplication, not a wail of despair. We don't beg or ask or plead for anything in prayer. It's rather an alignment with divine source, a unifying process which takes place in the mind as it reaches into the divine itself and to that power which is greater than human understanding. Yep, it is communion with the higher self and the divine. It is claiming alignment with God. And when we claim that alignment, we are calling for action, and God is the action through us. As we state our desire in prayer, claim it, declare it, believe it, have faith in it, and then we give thanks for it when it's done. Now, this may sound like heresy to some, probably not to you guys, I hope, but and somebody else who's listening, but that's the result of a belief that was taught to us that we're separate from God and we have to behave ourselves and wait on God's judgment to respond to us. And maybe some of us carry that on a cellular basis inside of us because we heard that as children. Sometimes that lives in there. And maybe that can, as a block sometimes. But we can work with that belief and we can change it as we remember and learn and do our work, our clearing that we're never separate from God. God lives and moves and has its being in each of its creations, right here, right now, in all of reality, you and me, and then it's ready to respond with our affirmative statement because God waits on us. He's right here waiting for us. People may say, how come some prayers are answered and some are not? Well, I don't have all the answers, wish I did, but it's very true that if you have any doubt or any fear, that becomes a little stumbling block on the road. So we have to be clear of all of that. God is right there. So if we have desires and opinions helping us form beliefs, and we put our faith behind the belief, we make affirmative statements for our desires in the form of prayer, which is the alignment and communion with Spirit in the creative process. And then we receive inspiration and revelation and the desired outcome and the culmination of our thoughts. That was a lot of words. Let me say that sentence again. That's like an Ernest Holmes run-on sentence, isn't it? We have desires and opinions helping us form beliefs, and we put faith behind our belief. We make affirmative statements for our desires in the form of prayer, which is alignment, communion with Spirit, and the creative process. And then we receive the inspiration and the revelation and the desired outcome. Yeah. The science part of our philosophy is about the application of the principle of affirmative prayer. We can talk about it, we can describe it, we can go ooh and ah when something happens, but it's the practical application of doing it on a consistent basis that provides the avenue for the change in our life, in all areas of our life. It's the knowing that there is a power in the universe that's greater than you or I, and remembering that from day to day. I think it's easy to forget that sometimes. There's a power that we can use to change things. Sometimes it's as simple as surrendering. We can just surrender a lifetime of beliefs that have kept us in the dark, in pain, in separation, or in lack in some way. We just surrender all of that and go to the source within. We can surrender just in gratitude to know the truth that life is more than we've ever been taught, and it can be more. I think all of us may have stories about maybe doing a prayer or an affirmation or a treatment or something, and it came true. And maybe sometimes even a little shocked that it actually worked. My favorite ones are always when I'm driving. I shouldn't say this probably. I get speeding tickets sometimes, although I haven't had one for a long time, but I have used treatment while I'm there and the policeman's talking to me, and I'll do a treatment about what I want him to be doing, and it happens. Now, that doesn't mean you should speed on the way home tonight, so don't take my advice on that, but it is an interesting observation right there in the moment that it can work. Unfortunately, I haven't won the lottery yet. So my best work is with speeding tickets. I guess I can.
Okay, I'm winning tonight.
You're winning tonight. There you go.
That's right.
You're winning, Carla.
Yes.
So anyway, the areas that people are able to manifest are different for everybody, depending on your beliefs and some of the stuff that you may need to still work on. But I think the two biggest areas that are difficult for most people, it is financial abundance, and the other is health and healing in our bodies. There are these two areas, I think, if the word fits, are controlled by culture and society, by the medical field, the pharmaceutical companies, and banking. It's like an overall umbrella over our consciousness and race mind that those are things that we're not supposed to be able to control. But we can control anything, actually. And it is surrendering and letting go of all those old beliefs that have been instilled on us and that we've taken consciously and unconsciously. We can control everything in our lives. Like any other belief, we can change the instilled core belief to know and have faith that God is the only true source of abundance and that it is our source of healing, wholeness, and abundance. The God, mind, intelligence particles live in every cell of our body. It listens to us, it feels us, it reacts to our commands, our thoughts, our words. So our body has an intelligence that we can work with that too. It is faith, knowing, and being it. We're working on learning spiritual mind treatment in the class right now that we're doing with Relita that's titled Power of Decision. Very interesting class. We're having some fun in there. And the information is teaching us that good comes from making firm decisions, why they work, why they might not work, and how prayer supports all the decisions in your life. So our form of affirmative prayer and the affirmations are part of that decision process, and it all works together. Brad is taking practitioner training where he's studying to go even deeper in that process and the technique and the power of his words and learning all of that. No matter what level of learning you're involved with, it's important to know always that the presence, the power, and all God represents is always circulating through each one of us in every moment and every part of your being and your thought. We are multidimensional beings. And by that Chris mentioned that in that your friend's personal thing last week, his affirmation about himself. And I don't hear many people use that term, but I say that too. We are multidimensional beings on so many levels. We're not just this third dimensional thing here. So our thoughts have so much power and energy on many levels. And it's important to remember that all the time. God is wholeness and divine health, that I am, that everyone else is here. God is abundance and prosperity that I receive and I live. God is the circulation of my being, and all goodness is mine. And I know this for each individual here and for every individual listening, here and now, always. And so it is. Thank you.
Thank you.